autism spectrum disorder. Introduction. Some children are clearly and consistently performing below their age groups in many areas of endeavor: academic, social, language, and self-care skills. This deficiency is obvious to anyone who interacts with them, and this calls for special education and related services to help them realize their potentials. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Point out the characteristics of children with autism spectrum disorder, ASD. 2. Outline causes of autism spectrum disorder, ASD. 3. Differentiate the types of ASD. And 4. Highlight classroom management strategies for children with ASD. Characteristics of children with autism spectrum disorder, ASD. We shall discuss a range of behavior that can be easily observed in a group of children with autism spectrum disorder in any setting. These are: A. Poor eye contact. Children with autism do not naturally look at people's faces. They make efforts to avoid lifting up their heads or look upwards into other people's faces. Even when they try to look at faces, their eyeballs move across or above the head, not directly resting on the other person's eyeballs. B. Absence of speech. Majority of children with autism always seem to be deaf and dumb. They hardly respond to spoken words or communicate fluently with spoken words. Speech seems to be delayed in a larger population of children with ASD. C. Poor social interaction. Children with ASD are generally withdrawn from other children. They usually like to stay away from other children instead of playing with their peers or siblings. 5. Abnormal play pattern. Children with ASD do not get excited by some toys the same way other children do. They usually get attached to a part of the toy or object rather than the whole toy. For example, the hair on a doll or the wheel of a toy car, etc. may be the only thing that interests them out of the whole toy. E. Receptive behavior. Children with ASD engage in unusual repetition of actions and activities that are not relevant to the context at any particular time. They shake heads or rock their bodies unnecessarily in a strange pattern. This is also referred to as stereotypes, which stand for purposeless movements such as head flapping, head rolling, or body rocking, etc. F. Compulsive behavior. They demonstrate high ability to follow specific routines of their own, such as arranging objects in a particular style all the time. G. Resist changes. Children with ASD resist changes in their activities. Once they have been used to a particular pattern, they find it difficult to let go. H. restricted behavior. Such children clearly seem to have very limited interest and choice of activities. They are also limited in focus and interest. They may prefer to watch a particular video, music track every day, etc. I. Self-injurious behavior. Children with autism do not feel pain, so they often engage in activities that can injure them and inflict pains on them. They bite themselves, slap and bend their heads against hard surfaces. They can even put their fingers inside fire if unguarded. J. Unusual response to sensory stimuli. They seem to overreact to sound and slight internal stimulation. Some may just take off, jumping, shouting. K. Selecting. Children with ASD select what they eat and also refuse food. This behavior is strange because despite their loss of appetite, they do not experience malnutrition. We have highlighted numerous characteristics. You may still come across many more as you search the internet. You must understand that these are not exhaustive, but these characteristics are generally found and easily noticeable among children with ASD. Causes of autism. The specific cause of ASD is not known. Autism has been related to biological disorder rooted in abnormal brain development. Some of the research findings that confirmed such include 1. Improper development of the brain. Some of the cells and connection in the brain of a kid with autism, especially those that affect communication, emotions, and senses, do not develop properly or get damaged. 2. Presence of gray matter in parietal lobes of the brain that control social processing and sight-based learning. Stern, 2008. 3. Enlarged gray matter in the parietal lobes of the brain linked to the mirror neuron system of cells associated with empathy, emotional experience, and learning through sight. Realtor, 2007. 4. Genetic and environmental factor can also be responsible. National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, NINDS, 2008, Wikipedia, 2008. 5. Abnormal levels of hormones in the brain, serotonin and neurotransmitters. 6. Chromosomal abnormalities such as depletion, duplication, and inversion. 7. Teratogenes agents, all other factors. Types of disorders in autism spectrum. The autism spectrum connects conditions with some similar characteristics that vary so much at the same time in the actual behavioral patterns. They exhibit 5 different groups that have been identified. This includes autism, Asperger syndrome, Rett syndrome, childhood disintegrative disorder (CDD), pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified (PDD-NOS), autism spectrum disorder and related conditions. We want you to know that children with ASD usually have other accompanying problems. This problem complicates their ways of living and makes management more challenging. We will make brief comments about these related conditions. Attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. This combines inattention and restlessness. Majority of the ASD population presents this problem. Motor problems. This includes poor muscle tone, toe walking jerk, and general problem with large and fine motor coordination. Eating disorders. Eating disorders are very prominent in the majority of children with ASD. They stick to only one type of food or observe abnormal eating habits and or refuse food totally and still manage to remain. Gastrointestinal problems. Many children with autism also have stomach disturbances, especially in connection to some classes of food. Sleeping disorder. Children with ASD experience different kinds of sleep problems. These problems, such as intestinal diabetes, abnormal intestinal permeability, and nutritional derangement, include difficulty in falling asleep, frequent nocturnal awakens, early morning awakens, absence of sleep at night, etc. Mental retardation. Majority of children with autism also have mental retardation as an additional disorder. This accounts for the overall low cognitive development in most of them. Learning difficulties. This is a close association of learning difficulties in some children with autism. This manifests in the uneven display of skills. They show high ability in one skill and perform very poorly in the other. They can be referred to as differential intelligence. Challenges and implementations for autism. There is no cure for autism. Most children with autism lack social support, meaningful relationship, and self-determination. All these problems are induced by the deficiencies in the three crucial aspects of life, that is, social interaction, communication, and response to one's environment. Thus, educational problems must be directed to focus on the following. 1. Improving social interaction. 2. Enhancing communication and language use. 3. Reducing abnormal behavior by training them on appropriate behaviors. 4. Training in self-management and vocational skills to enhance life in adulthood. Implications for treatment. Treatment of autism should be focused on reducing associated deficiencies and family distress. 2. General educational guidelines for managing children with ASD. Intensive and sustained special programs. 1. Clearly diagnose or differentiate the symptoms. 2. Give one-to-one instruction. 3. Train on eye contact. 4. Give one-step direction at a time. 5. Walk around the child's interest. And 6. Introduce peer-directed activities. Classroom strategies for children with autistic spectrum disorders. Pattern for teaching sessions. 1. Brief historical background. 2. Definition. 3. Characteristics. 4. Categories or types or classification. And 5. Identification. Study session summary. In this study session, we discussed the characteristics of children with autism spectrum disorders and its causes. We identified the types of ASD and related conditions. Finally, we explored classroom management strategies for children with ASD. That ends study session 6. Thanks for listening.